Hello, my name is Georgianne Ford with the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation, and today we have Debbie Schneider, one of our attorney mediators, returning again to talk to us about child support, but this is a heads up. There's been some changes in the Pennsylvania child support, and Debbie, you're going to fill us in?
I am, Georgianne. Thank you for having me today.
And Happy New Year to you.
So Happy New Year to everybody. So on January 1, 2022, a new set of guidelines for the calculation of child support in Pennsylvania were made law. Okay. So I think if you have been divorced and you are familiar with the child support, whole concept of child support in Pennsylvania, it is an entire system that's promulgated by the state of Pennsylvania. The legislature has created what they call an income shares model, which means that everyone, both parents, have to disclose their income to the other party, and they have to be essentially responsible. I mean, you're unconditionally responsible for supporting your children. So the income shares model is it's always been based on, and every 4 years, not every year, but every 4 years, routinely, the legislature does what they call an analysis of the cost of living. So most of the time, the cost of living increases. So it calls for an increase in the amount of child support that is part of the guideline. So as I've said before on my blogs, this is an income analysis. So we plug in incomes for the parties. We start with gross income, and then the formula includes taxes. It includes a number of other pieces that I won't go into today because it's too detailed. But we plug in income, we look at taxes, we look at the custody of the parties, whether they have shared custody or whether they have something other than shared, which would be a partial and a primary custody. And then the guideline amount is generated through the use of this formula. So it's a two-level approach. So for couples making more, or I should say, we'll start with less than $30,000 per month, you use a chart. So it's a standardized amount, and the standardized amount is derived, as I said, from a cost of living analysis and from looking at what intact families typically spend to feed, clothe, and house their children. So they extrapolate that analysis to divorced, never married, and separated couples and say, well, those parties should be spending essentially the same amount on their children, right, as an intact family would be. So that's the basis of the numbers themselves. And for less than, as I said, for less than $30,000 per month, it's a charge. And the increases range from about 10% increase up to about 22 or 23%. For couples with net incomes.
That's the new increase for this year?
Correct. That's correct. That's the new increase. For couples making more than $30,000 per month, the analysis is governed by case law in Pennsylvania, and that's now been included as part of the guideline rules. So those parties are required, again, to disclose their income, and then we look at either a judge looks at it, or in our mediation practice, the attorneys would look at it, and we look at what the parties need. But basically, it's needs. It's what's based on what is needed to support that child in that income range. And the reason it's done in that fashion is because there's frankly, very little real world analysis that can be done of intact families making more than $30,000 a month. I mean, the bottom line is that's a pretty rare kind of income.
Right.
So there's not a lot of real world data to support those numbers. So for children, for parties making more than $30,000 a month, then you can look at the analysis, the three-step analysis, and figure out what the needs are. And those increases can be as much as 20 to 25%. Now, all of these numbers assume a partial and primary custody arrangement. Okay, they don't include any deductions for shared physical custody. So if you're either paying a court-ordered support order, or if you're doing it informally through your mediation practice, and our clients, of course, are all in our mediation practice, you need to request a modification. So it's not going to automatically happen. You have to look at what your numbers are and request a modification.
So that's not for if we're doing physical 50-50 custody.
Right. That would require another analysis, because if you're doing 50-50 custody, then the higher earning spouse is entitled to a reduction in their number, often as much as 20%.
So Debbie, are you saying that everyone's really been affected by this if they're aware of it and could have some type of modification?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Okay. Anyone who's paying child support, receiving child support, or paying child support should know about this modification, should be able to take advantage of it, and should do so. I mean, you can contact the court if you're under a court order, or you should contact your mediator at the Alpha Center, and we'd be happy to do it for you.
1-800-310-9085. And Debbie, thanks so much. Perfect timing, because it is still January for us to jump on this if we're listening to this blog or video, reading the blog or listening to the video, I should say.
Great. Thank you, Georgianne.
All right. Thanks again. And we look forward to seeing you again.